All right. Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to another Voices of Inclusion speaker series. We're so excited this month to welcome several members of our Pennsylvania Student Advisory Board. So we have Kelsey McGaughey and Dom Mioli. So hi, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. We do have a couple other SAB members in the mix, and we might kind of put you on the spot and shout you out a little bit in a few minutes. But first, I wanted to welcome my colleague Marissa O'Brien, who is our Deputy Director of Programs, to sort of talk about how SAB got started here in PA and what exactly it is. So Marissa, do you want to share with everybody what the SAB does?
Sure. Thank you, Millie. I have had the honor and privilege to work closely with our student advisory board. It was kind of just an idea that came about because we saw the success that the student advisory board had in other states across the country. So we decided last summer that we were going to start the interview process and really bring a group of students together that we felt could help us with the program operations and initiatives in Pennsylvania. Obviously, at that point in time, we weren't really aware of the things that were going to be happening with COVID. So we kind of had to flip the script and turn all of the things that we were all doing together virtually. So I commend our student advisory board for the amount of time and attention they've put into planning virtual event opportunities for our participants, connecting with chapter officers to make sure that they had everything they needed, and to really provide that, peer-to-peer connection that I think we've all been looking for. Because, you hear from staff all the time, but sometimes it's just really nice to hear from somebody with the same perspective as you. So we actually have all of our interviews on the calendar for the upcoming student advisory board that will be announced on June 10th. So we're super excited to have Dom and Kelsey here today to give more of their perspective of what it's been like to be on the board.
Thank you, Marissa. And I have to give a shout out to Marissa and Sam and Andrew, who've been working with all of our student advisory board members and helping them connect with each other. So it's really cool because, Pennsylvania is a very big state and we don't always get to connect with people in all parts of the state, but our advisory board is made up of folks from Pittsburgh area and the greater Philly area. So I think we have more state unity than we've ever had before. And it's kind of because of the pandemic. So you might find in your life that you're connecting more with people that live a little further away from you, which is a really kind of nice silver lining.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, I
yeah.
think something that's super exciting is that, just from conversations I've been having, the Student Advisory Board is definitely an initiative that's being pushed nationwide now. I know some states kind of just created it on their own, but we're super excited to see, some of our neighboring states like Delaware and New York and New Jersey and things like that, just really coming together to want to start this initiative too. So as you hear some stuff today, be sure to write it down because a state in your area might be doing it as well.
Yeah, and Andrew already, that's a great idea. Andrew, in the chat, he's asking to everybody to tell us where you're from in the chat. So it's going to be cool to see because some of our eBuddies participants are from all over the country. So that's awesome.
And one of our first staffers, Liz Wolford from Pennsylvania.
There she is. Yes, we might put Liz on the spot later on to talk about the early days of PA because she helped to launch our programs here in Pennsylvania. But without further ado, I'd love for Kelsey and Dom to tell us where they're coming from and what chapter they've been involved in and how kind of they got started with Best Buddies. And then we'll kind of ask some more questions to dig in a little deeper. So Kelsey, do you want to go first and tell us what chapter you're a part of?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I am a senior in high school and I am our chapter president at Quaker Valley High School. It's right outside the city in Pittsburgh. We have about like 50-ish members at most whenever they all show up. We have been around for, I think, 7 years now, and I've been an officer for 3 out of my 4 years of high school. It's been a really awesome experience. I got brought on to the team by our chapter president whenever I was a freshman. She came up to me and kind of led me in the right direction of how to lead and be a leader in my chapter. And I ended up chapter president senior year. So I got involved by older people reaching out to me and taking interest in including me like we all do with everyone else.
I love that. That's awesome. And how about you, Dom? Where are you coming from?
I'm coming from Norristown, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia. So I'm on the eastern side, one of the eastern representatives. I'm the current chapter president of Methacton High School. But my involvement in Methacton Best Buddies goes way back, long before I started high school. My older sister Dana was with Methacton Best Buddies for longer than I can count now. It might almost be a decade at this point. And she's had such a fantastic experience with it. And I saw how much joy Best Buddies brought her that I knew I had to get involved in some capacity. And once I just tested the waters for myself, I made so many, valuable friendships and had so much valuable exposure opportunities. I knew that I wanted to get involved in a leadership position. So I shadowed the former president of Methacton Best Buddies last year, and then took over the role this year in our virtual year, which I don't think anybody expected, but Methacton Best Buddies, we're definitely making the best of it. We host over, I believe it's 16 peer buddy matches, along with a handful of associate members, to create an overall awesome environment.
I love it. I love it. You guys are really great examples of student leaders, and that's why it's so great to have you to be a part of the Student Advisory Board. So I'm curious, what made you want to step up in this additional leadership role? You're already a leader at your school and in your chapter. What was it about SAB that made you want to be a part of it? So we can head back to Kelsey for that first.
So when I heard about SAB, I heard about it directly from Sam. She let me know about it. And I just thought that that would definitely be like a really cool next step up in leadership through Best Buddies, because obviously being chapter president at my chapter, I have a lot of responsibility and like things to do all the time with my chapter. But I thought it would be really cool to have a leadership position across PA on like a wider scale and get to use all of the talents and things that I've learned from my small chapter and get to share them with everyone across PA. So I just thought helping out on a larger scale and getting to know, especially this year, since we're all virtual, the kids from Philly, I just immediately knew it'd be a really rewarding experience, which it has been for sure.
I love it. And I love your vibe. You got a good
Thank
like
you.
Philly vibe. We
Philly
respect
vibe.
that.
I'm from Pittsburgh. Come on.
I know, but you're a kindred
Oh,
spirit.
no.
I think there's a lot of like Philly versus Pittsburgh in the sports side of things, but we have so much more in common than we have
Okay.
different. So that's been really a cool thing to learn more about each other on each side of the
Yes,
state.
sure.
Was this experience so far what you'd expected to be, or how has it changed your perception now that you've been going through this for a while
So
now?
at first, whenever I like heard about it and everything, I thought it was gonna be like this super serious kind of like I don't want to say a lot of responsibility, but like a whole bunch of like hard work, and the work that we do, it just turned into fun. Like all of our whole SAB team has just like kind of turned into like a friend group, and we're no longer just like random kids from random high schools or colleges, sorry. We're all just like friends, and like we all like text separately outside of SAB stuff, and it definitely was just like way more of like a fun and like engaging thing with other people more than I realized it would be.
Well, I love that that's happening because, you're kind of thrust together with this group of people that you may not have a lot in common with. But I think the one thing you guys all seem to have in common is just your passion to help the mission of Best Buddies grow and to make Pennsylvania a more inclusive state. So I love that that has kind of cultivated some new friendships out of it all, because that's really what it's all about.
Yeah,
So
it's
how about you, Dom? What drew you to SAB, and is it a little bit what you expected, or is it different than you expected?
I think the core part of my answer is similar to Kelsey's. At the time when the applications first rolled out, my high school had just begun its, I guess, virtual education program. And after seeing what could be accomplished virtually, I knew that this state level initiative had the opportunity to go a long way with all of the new resources that we had access to, such as Zoom and other ideas. And so once I got involved and look, I was fortunate enough to earn a spot on the board. At first, I think we all kind of thought it'd be a little awkward, or there'd be a little bit of a speed bump at the start, because you're taking 12 strangers all from different areas around the state and kind of putting them together. And really, I liked what you said. You're uniting a bunch of people through their passion for Best Buddies. And I thought that was really neat. But after a little bit of time, it became almost secondhand. As Kelsey said, we're all just a group of friends. It's very nice that we all work really well together, and that we can joke around and have a fun time through everything. And then it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like we're we're doing a good thing with a good group of people. And even extended beyond just the SAB members, I think everybody has made friendships just through the people that attend our events, and we see all the familiar faces. Even today, I see a lot of names I recognize in the participant list, and that's really fantastic just to be able to build bonds with people that you would have never met in other circumstances. And that for me has been fantastic.
That's awesome. And that answer gave me like real world vibes. So I feel like one of these days we might have to put you all together in a house and see what happens when people stop being nice. No, you'll always be nice. You're good people. But so curious, what have been some of the big challenges this year? I think I can imagine a few of them, but nobody kind of expected what we'd be getting into. So as a student advisory board, working together with our staff, trying to help people stay connected during this time, what has been some of the hard parts, both in your chapters and in your community, but also as a part of the board? How about you, Kelsey?
I would say personally for my chapter specifically, it's been a lot harder to keep people consistent in like showing up to events and showing up to meetings and stuff, just because as everyone knows, our lives have been taken over by Zoom, and sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. So we meet on our off day from school. So just getting people to just be so willing to participate, even if it's an extra hour on Zoom, has definitely been a challenge for my chapter. But I think it also has been really rewarding to see some of the people that show up very consistently, especially on our like trivia nights and stuff. I love seeing like the same faces. So even if we're not getting like an abundance of people and new people, we still get to see a lot of consistent faces and get to talk to people over Zoom, which is still really cool.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sure I've done some of these virtual opportunities too, and you're always hoping to get a nice sized crowd, but for the people that do show up, that this really means something to them. It's really important to them. They count on it, and that's why I just have to again and again say thank you to you guys and to the rest of the board, because we couldn't accomplish what we've been able to accomplish in terms of these virtual connections without your support. You've got, do you want to share some of the activities that you guys have hosted this year and kind of give people a sense of what you've been up to?
Me?
Yeah, Kelsey, if you want to, and then
I can totally share. So a lot of our main things is we've been having a lot of Trivia Tuesdays, which I think we do around every other week. And those are just like super fun. We always have themes, whether it's Disney or food or whatever, whoever's running it comes up with that week. And they're always like super fun. They're a great way to just like kind of chat while also having a little bit of structure and laughing about the trivia questions or whatever. And then we also do special events like Baking with Best Buddies. Those are normally with you guys, one of the staff, which have been really cool. We've done craft nights, which have been really fun. It's always so interesting to see whenever you're teaching over Zoom how you could be showing one thing, and then when everybody shows theirs, you have like 10 different things that people come up with because it's not in person. So that's always very entertaining. But what else, Dom, what else have we done? I know we've done a million things.
We've done a lot of holiday themed celebrations as well. We had a winter festival, Valentine's Day. We just had an Earth Day related event I guess a little earlier in the month. I think it was last week. So we try to keep it seasonal as well, because those kinds of things only happen once a year. So it's nice to kind of make the most of it, especially in a setting where people might not be celebrating these events in the same ways that they normally would. So it's been neat to give people a new outlet, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And for you, what are some of the challenges that you've seen in your chapter this year, and with, sort of trying to keep everybody together? I know you mentioned Dana and sort of seeing the effect that, not having things like day program opportunities or jobs that can't happen because they can't be in person. For you, that's personal, I'm sure, and for your family. And there's a lot of other people out there that are really worried about the person they love having, really devastating impact from what the pandemic has done for all of us. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think my take on the way this past year has gone is I wouldn't necessarily call it more challenging than a normal year. It was just out of the ordinary. So the challenges that we faced were entirely new. As Kelsey said, all forms of engagement, I'm sure across every chapter was different. For Methacton Best Buddies, our enrollment was significantly smaller this year, and there's no one or nothing to blame for that. That's just how it went. And we had to make the most of it. Even this past weekend, we hosted our first hybrid event, which was a great milestone for Methacton Best Buddies. And we only had a handful of kids show up to our event, which at first I was a little bummed out by, because obviously you want people to be able to make the most of every opportunity. But then the person that was hosting our outdoor yoga, it was a third party small local business. She reminded me that it's always quality over quantity. All the people that were at our event made sure that, or they enjoyed it, and it was their favorite event of the year. And I think that's what counts. So outside of the engagement, also on a peer buddy level, I think a lot of peer buddies struggled in the sense that the buddies, they were often on different, I guess, restrictions placed upon themselves by themselves or their family in terms of what they could or could not do. And a lot of repetition then occurred. You're always calling your buddy, you're always FaceTiming, having a Zoom call, and there isn't a lot of room for variation. And so that forced people to come up with creative ways to get together. I know our chapter hosted buddy groups, which was small engagement groups that it didn't split up the peer buddies, but it just introduced people to more people, which is what counts, especially in a time where you're almost not seeing anybody other than the people that you're stuck at home with. So I think even though it was a lot of new challenges, it also presented, or we were also able to present a lot of new solutions, which we should only be able to expand upon in future years, whether those be virtual or in person.
That's great. And I think I love the way you've taken the challenge and you've been innovative and resilient and thought of ways to make it work. We're all kind of dealt the cards we're dealt, and we have to figure out the best way to move forward. So I love that you came up with some new ideas to try to keep people engaged. So on the flip side of the challenges, what has surprised you this year, or surprised you of being a part of your chapter or a part of SAB? What's something that you consider a success that you're really proud of? How about you, Kelsey?
Sorry, my phone started ringing, so I had to mute myself. What surprised me most is probably how many different things that you can do virtually that you would never expect to be so fun. Like if you were to say to me a year and a half ago, okay, you're about to run an event once a week for the next 6 months for your chapter, but it's going to be all online, I'd be like, no, you're crazy. Like there's no way I'd be able to do that. But I think it was just really surprising to see, not only with my high school chapter, but on the SAB, just so many different ways that we've figured out a way to have fun and connect, even if it's just virtual.
How about you, Tom?
I'd like to jump in here, and I wholeheartedly agree with Kelsey. The amount of stuff, or the amount of events we were able to host, not only for the SAB but also for my chapter, it was pretty, for lack of a better term, it was pretty crazy. And my favorite thing that I always point out is some of my best ideas for events were never my own. And it was great to see what other chapters were doing and how I could incorporate that into Methacton and the board even. I saw some chapters host, Kelsey, I think your chapter hosted a pet show, right?
We did, yes.
That was awesome.
Everyone bring their animals onto their camera. It was the most chaotic thing I've ever seen, but the most fun, I think, event we had all year.
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of yoga events, both virtual and in person. There were game nights such as Jeopardy and Family Feud, all of the holiday things I mentioned. It was just, there's a lot of variety that I wasn't really expecting going into the year. Because at the start of the year, when I met with my officers at Methacton, we put down a list of possible virtual events that we could come up with before our club even got together. And I think the list capped out at about 5. Because it was all new. We didn't know what to expect. I had never gotten on a Zoom call with all my friends from Methacton Best Buddies before. So it was really nice to see not only innovation, I guess, from myself, but from all the people around me. Because as again, I did like borrowing or stealing ideas from other people.
I love it. And I do remember seeing that pet show situation, and I was like, why didn't we think of that? That's such a great idea. But that's the cool part about this. We have this network of people now that we can share ideas. I know we have a group me set up so that our chapter leaders can connect with each other. And I always see folks saying like, what are you guys doing for a match party this year? Or how did you, get the pairs to be more engaged with each other? So I love the idea sharing that goes on. What do you guys think? Should we call out one of our other SAB members that are on the
For
call?
sure.
What do you think? Should we? How
I
about
agree.
we invite our friend Ilana to the spotlight?
Yeah, let's
She's
spotlight Alana.
she's
Give her
covering
up.
her face. Hey, Ilana. Thanks for letting us put you on the spot. So I'm just curious from your perspective as a member of SAB, kind of some of the questions that we've already talked about with Dom and Kelsey, like what has been the most surprising part of being a part of SAB this year for you, or something that you didn't expect?
Yeah, for me, so our Best Buddies Club started my freshman year by one of my closest friends. And that's kind of how I found out about this whole organization, which I can't say enough good things about Best Buddies. I absolutely love everything it stands for. And just, sorry, I don't really have a lot prepared, but it was just, I don't know. It was just this year I was on the events committee with Dom, and we would get together once a month or more, and we would just plan these like out of the box events that we were like, okay, what's something that is inclusive for everyone? So we wanted to make sure that there was, if any, very minimal materials, and make sure that people wouldn't need to necessarily get up if they had a developmental like disability or anything. And just, I think it was a lot harder over Zoom, kind of figuring out how to make sure we were inclusive for everyone. And I can genuinely say that I definitely think that the SAB as a whole, we definitely accomplished that. Like, for example, we were talking about our Earth Day event, and we literally went out and like painted rocks with nice messages on them to then leave across PA. And so someone would pick up a rock and it would say spread positivity. And just small things like that, I think, is just kind of what the core of Best Buddies is. And I think that was, I obviously like already love the organization, but I was just able to get such a deeper connection with this. And I don't know, it's just, there were so many things that I just could have never imagined ever thinking of. Just like both Dom and Kelsey were saying, like, I remember going into it, and like my interview last year, and Marissa was saying how this was the first ever year that things were happening. And I was like, wait, what? No way. But I'm honestly so thankful that this year was the first year, because we got to hold 2 or 3 events a month. And I honestly, it was supposed to be kind of like the Pittsburgh side versus the Philly side, because it was 6 and 6. And I generally could not imagine not talking to Kelsey like every single day, because she's Pittsburgh and I'm Philly. Kelsey, I love you so much. You too, Dom and Natalie. But I don't know. It's just,
oh my God, we're like solving like the world's problems. Let's
We
go to the
really
Middle
are.
East next. I think
One state at a time.
this is amazing. I love that. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry we put you on the spot, but I mean, you all have this attitude of like, yeah, I'll jump in, I'll do it. And I mean, hosting that Baking with Best Buddies was an example of that, Ilana. So really appreciate that. Now let's pick another SAB member to call out. I think we have our friend Natalie on the call if she's not run for her life. Natalie, will you join us? There she is. Hi.
Hello, everyone.
So, how about you, Natalie? What's your experience been like with SAB?
It was definitely interesting. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Student Advisory Board, so I'm not in a specific committee. I just kind of oversee all of the committees, and it was definitely difficult because this was like the first one, and we were kind of the guinea pigs. It was hard to establish some sort of responsibility and understanding what our roles were in our committees and how the board was going to work out. And but I think, everyone on the committee was so spectacular and so amazing. If we needed a spot filled, just like we were talking about, someone jumped in. There was always someone willing to back each other up. We're like sort of like a little family now, like we, always have each other's backs. And if there's something going wrong or someone texts and says, I can't make it, I'm in traffic, someone comes in. And that, like, I'm always grateful for, people who are able to be flexible. That's really what it was about this term. And I guess this whole year really has just been flexibility and patience. And I think everyone on the student advisory board has shown great amounts of both. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for letting us kind of call you out onto the spotlight here. But I love to hear your feedback and how it's going. And it isn't easy. It's great to talk about how successful it's been, but people should also know that it's not an easy thing. It's a commitment of time, of energy. Like you were saying earlier, people are on Zoom all day. So the idea of continuing your day into the evening on Zoom can sometimes not be appealing, but I think once you're there in those event and activity opportunities and everybody's excited to see each other, that can really shift things for you. So, and if anybody has questions for the SAB members, feel free to drop them in the chat. I may not be able to read that quickly. So if my colleagues want to help me with the chat reading, if you see a question, you want to bring it up, let us know.
Andrew, do you want to ask the question that you put in the chat?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, we do have a question with the four of you don't mind answering. There was a question someone sent directly. They just didn't feel comfortable enough to share out loud, which is so fine. It's, do you have any committees or responsibilities outside the main group or events? And I think this is a great kind of conversation because I know that there's a lot of answers there. So does anybody want to start off that question?
I can start.
Great.
So my committee is mission expansion, and Andrew was our staff person that kind of spearheaded and kind of helped us and guided us to what we needed to do. And pretty much what we did is we reached out to chapters that either just needed the little extra push or just was reaching out for a little extra help. And we kind of just reached out on a personal level, as we not only reached out to the other high school like leaders at their chapters, but their advisors. And we just kind of said, hey, like, I'm Kelsey, I'm from the student advisory board. Like, I'm now your go-to person for any questions, like anything you need help with, anything that I can give you ideas with. If you need to figure out something on Best Buddies Online, like, we were pretty much just their go-to. So I had a really awesome experience with mission expansion. I got super close with this one chapter president who also lived in Philly. So that was, again, one of those crazy things that would have happened without COVID. So that was really awesome. But I got to help her, and we just like built this relationship of, I was kind of just like mentoring her and what she needed to do to help her chapter be as successful as it can. And it was just a really awesome experience.
And a challenge too, because there was times where you didn't get a reply, or you had to figure out like what you were going to do if they don't reply, or if they won't be, responsive to your help. So you and Sarah and did a great job. Anybody else want to share?
I love that. Yeah. Any other feedback from SAB members about other responsibilities or subcommittees that you guys are a part of?
As mentioned earlier, I was on the events committee with Alana, and then our other member is Caitlin Anderson, who is a frequent Best Buddies Zoom attendee. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, know Caitlin. And our job was to come up with interactive and inclusive and unique virtual events each month that supplemented our traditional Trivia Tuesdays and craft nights that we held every month. It was definitely challenging. I wouldn't say at first, but kind of towards the middle, when we used up all of the ideas that we came in with, and then we had to come up with some new ones. But I think we built up a pretty good pattern. Luckily, I had fantastic committee members that were very, very helpful along the way. And yeah, I think overall, events committee was definitely a success. I think we held a lot of successful events, and I hope to carry those experiences into the future for sure.
Awesome. And Marissa mentioned some of the other committees that are also part of it, the social media committee, the fundraising committee. So I think it's great because it helps to kind of spread that responsibility around and delegate. And it's a leadership opportunity. So when you're a part of a committee like that, you can really take your ideas and bring them to life. So that's always great. Curious for you guys, anyone who wants to answer here, what do you think being a part of a group like this will add for your skill set in terms of, you know, your next steps in your college career or after college, whatever career you pursue? Do you feel like you've gained some valuable skills here?
Yeah, I can take this one. So I've always, honestly, the reason that I applied for the SAB is because I want to pursue a career in special education. That's kind of always been my dream, and I've been working towards it for a while now, just like through babysitting, and I have a job. I'm a teacher at like my religious school, but overall, like what it taught me is like there's a plan B for everything, and it's not glaring at you right away, and it might not be the option that you initially wanted, but like there's always a plan B and you can make it work no matter what you do. Let's say maybe, even though this is not a bad thing, but like let's say I need some help from an SAB member, and like they're going to be there for you no matter what, and they're going to give you ideas that you would have never thought of, and then you're going to expand on them and make it an amazing, in my case, event or fundraiser we had. And it's always kind of been my desire to include people with like intellectual and developmental disabilities in our community. But it's just, I don't know, I felt like the SAB just gave me a platform of just more outreach outside of my school, because I love all of those kids so much. But it was nice to like learn about some new things and how other people think, because there's this whole stigma around just buddies in general. And it's not that they're any, like, I just want to help, like that they're not like, just kind of like
Other,
they're,
right? Yeah.
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 It's not like
Well,
any,
I'm curious for all of you too. Do you feel like having a Best Buddies chapter has changed your school culture? Is it a more inclusive place because of it? Or what do you think still, what's the work we still have to do, you know? And there's, these are for schools that have Best Buddies. There are thousands of schools that don't. So kind of, if anybody wants to speak to that, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say.
I'll talk about my chapter. So I am actually the co-president of Best Buddies at Muhlenberg in Allentown, PA, also. And I think that we have made a lot of progress culturally and on campus and in the Allentown community, but I think there's still a lot of work to do. So we've had a Best Buddies chapter for as long as I've been here and for as long as I can remember. And you know, there definitely is inclusivity 100%. We've never had any incidences, but I think there's a lot more education that can be done and just raising awareness, because there's people on campus who don't even know what Best Buddies is. And we're such a small school. You know, we only have about 1,500 students or something like that. So we are a small school, and I would love to have, you know, everyone on, oh, sorry, I was reading the chat. You know, would love for everyone on campus to at least know what Best Buddies is or know the name. Or so I think just getting, you know, the awareness out and the education out is the progress that my chapter is making currently in the Lehigh Valley area.
That's great. Anybody else want to add to that? How do you feel like Best Buddies has impacted your school culture?
Sure. I think at Methacton, again, Methacton isn't known for having incidents regarding inclusion or all the other important terms, but I think Best Buddies is simply a piece of the puzzle, right? There's a, for how big the Best Buddies mission is, it falls under the umbrella that you see a lot of schools talking about right now, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, that whole movement. So it's definitely a piece of the puzzle, because if you only have one piece of that, it doesn't fill the whole puzzle. And until you fill that whole puzzle, there's always going to be problems of exclusion and other things. And while, again, it doesn't necessarily come down to a specific person or a specific group of people, I think what Natalie said about there's still a lot of educating to do and there's still a lot of awareness to be raised is a very important piece for all chapters.
Absolutely. Anybody else before we go to the next topic?
I can share a little bit real quick. So my chapter has been getting like an exponentially larger, and we've like had so many new members join within the past 3-ish years. And it's been really awesome to see how our school has kind of gone from our life skills classroom and our regular ed classrooms, just kind of our students, I should say, like coexisting to now like being intertwined. And whenever one of our buddies walks down the hallway, there's 100% always somebody going like, oh, hey, how you doing? Like, what's going on? And I think whenever I was a freshman, that was definitely there. But I think that throughout my 4 years, it's way more present than it was 4 years ago. So that's been really awesome for me to watch.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting what Natalie is talking about because, you know, in a college setting, many times there are not students with intellectual and developmental disabilities on campus. So what we do with our college chapters is we typically match them with a local service provider that does serve people with disabilities, and that's where their buddies come from. But more and more, we're starting to see colleges that have programs specifically geared towards individuals with disabilities to continue their education, which that's actually something we're looking into. How many of those programs exist, and are they at schools that we don't have chapters in? And can we develop a chapter there? Because that'll be such a great fit, and it'll help the individuals with disabilities on campus really get that full campus experience, making those friends, making connections. So but there's so many schools, even some of our, you know, sometimes a private high school won't have individuals with disabilities that attend. They don't have a special needs portion of their student body. And so for them, they rarely walk down the hall and see anyone that's neurodiverse. So you know, I think what's so great about having a student advisory board is we're able to think big. Like, we're not just doing the bare minimum of accepting people, because everyone deserves to be accepted. Let's think about all the opportunities and all the potential there is to help people live a full life and have the same opportunities that some of us take for granted. And Dom mentioned that this is an inclusive board. We have members on the board that have disabilities, and that's really important. I think this was our first year, so we're still probably, we have some work to do to make it a more inclusive board. And I think as we get our handle on how do we manage this board and how do you guys interact with each other as we move forward, I would love to see our buddies be more involved in the process and giving them more leadership roles too. But I love that they have a voice in the decisions and the plans that you guys make. And I think that's such a great example, because all of our chapters also have inclusive leadership teams. And you know, each chapter has a buddy director. So that's just the bare minimum, though. We can do more, we can do better. You know, we give you guys all a guideline of the basic officer positions that people can have, but as you've probably all experienced, you can create new officer roles in your chapters too. So the potential for that to really grow is great. Anyway, so any other questions in the chat that I'm missing, guys? Help me out. I'm not a
There was oh sorry, Marissa. There was one where somebody asked what advice do you guys have if somebody wants to be on a student advisory board?
That was me.
So any advice to, yeah, that was a definite Marissa question, but we'll allow it. Any advice that you would give someone that's interested in playing a leadership role on the student advisory board? Or let's say, you know, we're going to record this and share it on social media. So if we're talking to states that maybe don't have one yet, I would say 10 out of 10 would recommend get a student advisory board. But how about you? Anybody want to share?
I would say, can you hear me okay with my mask on? Okay. I would say, you know, if you're thinking about it and you're on the fence, do it. You know, take that leap and take that jump and put some faith and trust in yourself, because maybe I'm biased, but the state of PA's student advisory board is the best. We just a little biased. We are a family and we work hard and we come to our meetings and we are serious and we are professional, but we have so much fun. You know, we do have fun, and it is a job. It's a big responsibility. It's an additional responsibility that we have to take on and we choose to take on. But you know, the payoff is more than I think any of us could ever really imagine, because like we just see like the magic of best buddies, and it's really incredible to see, you know, people coming from all over the state of PA to work together. So my advice is do it, apply.
I'm gonna ask Natalie, I would say, like the biggest thing with anything is balance and moderation. And I think all of us have talked so highly about how not only obviously like we do work and we work really hard to spread inclusion and just all of that, but it's also just so important that all of us really are friends. Like I know we're a broken record at this point, but it's truly just you need to find a balance in everything. And I think throughout the year, the Pennsylvania SAB found that balance between like fun but also hard work. And I think it's just really all you need to expect when you come in is that there's going to be hard work, but there's the biggest reward that you could ever imagine. So
yeah, I completely agree. Like going into it, knowing that you're going to have a good amount of work and you will have not a good amount, a fair amount of work to do. And just expect that there will be expectations for you, but also expect that you're going to meet some of the most like awesome people you ever have. And like just for me personally, like I never expected to become like best friends with all of these like girls and Dom and everyone. Like I would never expect to be with Sarah one night and call Natalie at midnight and she answered. So like one of those kind of things. And it's just go in expecting that you're going to have fun. And just I'd add one more thing, that go in not afraid to like try things new or like bring up any type of idea or event that has never happened before, because as we work together, like both Alana and Natalie said, like anything that we come up with that's new, it's worked out for us great. Like everything, we work together so well that if somebody has an idea, we're like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Like, let's figure it out. So just like come ready with ideas and not be afraid to like share them, even if it seems like it may not work out.
We're gonna crop this and edit it into a commercial because this has been so great.
The chat is blowing up.
Millie, sorry for cutting you off, but I would also like to say to any future possible SAB applicants, whatever state you're in, it's important to recognize as an applicant that I assume every board, or at least most boards, will have a limited number of spots. And if you don't earn one of those spots, don't let that extinguish the fire. You're obviously applying for the board because you care enough to apply for the board and you want to be involved in Best Buddies. And there are a lot of ways to get involved at a higher level. It doesn't just have to be the board. So if it doesn't work out, just find other ways to accomplish the mission of Best Buddies and your mission.
yeah, and a great way to do that is I know I'm really close with someone who is on the Friendship Walk committee actually. And there's just so many amazing opportunities. So if you look at the newsletters and the buddy beats and stuff, I promise like we got you.
You just delighted Marissa that you did a plug for the buddy. So thank you for that. And Dom, that is such a great point, because look, you throw spaghetti at a wall, sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't, you keep cooking, right? I just made that up. I'm so sorry. But you really hit such a great point, not to get discouraged, because like you said, this is a small kind of team of people. But these opportunities will continue to come around, and maybe, if people are really interested, but they haven't been selected this time, reach out to our staff. We are really kind of open to new ideas and new initiatives. And there's a lot more that we want to accomplish for our state. So if you have that passion and that drive, let somebody know, and new opportunities can be formed through those kinds of conversations. So I think, Andrew, we have more questions coming.
I was just going to say that chat's blown up with so much positivity as well. So it's definitely infecting everyone today. But I wanted to highlight two things. One, a question from Hillary, and two, something Nikki said. She just said, in Best Buddies, I've learned teamwork, perseverance, public speaking, being measurable. And being in Best Buddies has greatly impacted my leadership roles because I've learned so much, and I've learned about myself as well. So thank you for sharing that, Nikki. I think Sam is already tearing up in your buddy. But I just wanted to also highlight, Hillary had a question just, in general, saying it's helpful to have measurable goals. How do we know if BB is making school campuses more inclusive, and is there anything that could be measured? So maybe from your perspective as students, or Millie in general, if we could talk about that.
Yeah, I guess, what are you hearing? What's the word on the street about Best Buddies? What are the vibes?
Yeah,
that's my translation of what that question.
Yeah. speaking of words specifically, I know a year or two ago, our school did a huge campaign for Spread the Word to End the Word, which was a Best Buddies initiative. And I genuinely I never hear that word in the halls anymore. And just the fact that it wasn't that people were trying to be offensive to anyone, but, just like Natalie highlighted so amazingly before, it's just the use of education that I think Best Buddies brings and the small steps that we're able to take. I think that's what's most important, and that can be measured.
Yeah. And when you know better, you do better in most cases. But I think some of you, when we talked earlier, had mentioned the growth of your chapter. I think that's a great measurable way to see that by your examples, people are coming into the fold that might not otherwise have taken on these causes. So, but I guess, yeah, I mean, this year will be sort of different from other years in terms of how we've measured our success. I think, generally speaking, things like our membership application numbers have been lower, but we know that is not reflective of what we're seeing from a lot of our chapters. There's still the same large group of members engaged, but it's just been such a wild, crazy year. Different ways of communicating the guidelines and things like that have gotten some people a little confused. So going forward, I think we will probably bounce back stronger than ever when we're in person. I have a feeling that people are going to be so eager to be around each other again and to be able to do some of those fun things that they really always liked. So I'm curious, what are you guys looking forward to for the future of your involvement with Best Buddies? And what's maybe a goal that you have for yourselves for your involvement? Anybody can take it.
For me, since I am a high school senior, I will be going to college next year. And while I have no idea where that's going to be yet, I'm excited to take what I know and apply it wherever I will be. There's no reason why I have to give it up just because I'm graduating. And I've had such a fantastic time with Best Buddies at every level that I've been involved with. So obviously, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure it's still part of my life moving forwards.
Well, Marissa says in the chat that she believes your future is on the student advisory board. So I don't know if she has a crystal ball, but that's pretty good to hear. Anybody else want to share kind of their future goal or plan or what your trajectory looks like?
So I'm in the same boat as Dom. I will also be a freshman in college next year. And so I'm just really looking forward to hopefully again being on the SAB and then just joining the college level chapter, which will probably be a little bit bigger than my high school chapter.
Yeah, and me too. I'm a junior, but I think just being aware of, I think it's just really cool how we chose members from colleges as well as high schools, because you're getting kind of not everything that Best Buddies kind of encompasses, but you're getting a whole spectrum, which is kind of what's most important. And for me personally, I know for a fact that I'm going to be visiting a school not just because Kelsey and Sarah are there, but because it was really important to me to look through colleges and see which ones had Best Buddy chapters for colleges that I'm going to be applying to. That wasn't the only factor to schools, but that was something that was really big for me. And if I wasn't able to do it, then definitely being able to start some kind of chapter. And that was something I had no idea about. I knew that adults were in Best Buddies, but I never knew that it was anything really out.
It opened up your horizons.
Yeah,
exactly. I love to hear that. And, I will say this, if you're graduating out of a school that has Best Buddies and you might be going to a college that doesn't mean that you can't be the one to launch it. So I'm actually working with someone who was our chapter president at Plymouth Whitemarsh High School, and she's a freshman at Drexel, and we're working to, she hope she doesn't see this and feel embarrassed, but we're going to launch a chapter at Drexel because she's so passionate and she already knows what it takes. So you don't have to put down, Best Buddies on a shelf as you move forward throughout your life. And also citizens, as for community members, anyone older than 18 can continue that engagement and be involved in citizens, or serve on our advisory board, or, you know, continue to be a volunteer, continue to make an impact with us, because we never want to let you go. Anything you want to share, Natalie, before we move on?
Well, in regards to like my near future of Best Buddies, I will be the co-president again on the student advisory board, and I will be the co-president again for Muhlenberg. So that will kind of finish out, you know, my next year-ish in college, and then I hope to never leave Best Buddies, to be completely honest. I just want to, you know, find a position, you know, throughout college, and you know, post college. I plan to, you know, take all the lessons and all of the values that I've learned through Best Buddies and bring them with me forever. So, yeah.
I love that. And I'm going to spotlight our state director, Hillary Stevens, because she wanted to add something. Go ahead, Hillary.
No, I think it's so much fun to listen to all of you contribute and how excited you are. We have meetings monthly where we're looking for additional people to help with our walk or to help with some of our events. And we're so frustrated so often. We had a call this morning about the fact that our committees weren't working the way we really wanted them to be. So clearly we should be looking to all of you guys for help, because you are the ones that seem to have the energy to really make this go. We're talking about building, you know, committees of 15 or 20 people. And we said, well, everybody likes to do logistical things because that's a very succinct kind of thing. But there's so many leadership roles within this organization. So just as whoever it was, Dom, or I can't remember who said, you know, if you don't get on the student advisory board, what else is there to do? There is so many opportunities here for all of you. We'd love to have you stay involved.
Yeah, and we're definitely looking to get a student advisory board member from each side of the state to be a part of our advisory board, to kind of be a liaison between the student voices and I don't want to say the old voices, but you know what I mean.
Yes, so they can motivate. Yes, so you guys can motivate them. It's really exciting to see.
Yep. All right. Well, we are almost out of time, so I'm gonna open it up to everyone, like if we can unspotlight and come back to our larger group, and any final questions people might have.
Yeah, Millie, just wanted to highlight Justin's been very active in the chat.
Yeah, this is the time for that. So let's open.
Yeah, he just wanted to say he's been involved at ECF, and he's been involved in Citizens and Inclusive Education Services, and he won Champion of the Year. It sounds like it's a good fundraiser. So he's been very active, and thanks for being
a champion in our midst.
I know, and he's an e-buddy, so welcome, and he's been very active. But no other questions, I don't think, at this point. If anybody wants to add.
Well, I see a hand or two.
I've been hearing Liz Wolford in our chat talking about Muhlenberg. So
Liz, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Don't make me spotlight you, friend.
I unmuted.
Okay, good. Liz has been in the chat shouting out Muhlenberg. Now, Liz, we are very privileged to have you here with us today, because you were the founding mother of Best Buddies Pennsylvania. She was our lone staff person. Correct me if I'm wrong, Liz. Tell us about the early days of BBPA, would you? I'm going to spotlight you. It's happening.
Oh, don't spotlight me. I do not want to be spotlighted. And I'm sorry for getting into the chat, but I was so excited when Natalie started talking about Muhlenberg. I could not resist, because I am a Muhlenberg alum. Go Mules. Graduated from Muhlenberg way back in 1994. In May, and started working with Best Buddies Pennsylvania in September of that year when we opened a state office. So I was one of the original 2 staff people, state director and myself as a program manager that started. And Muhlenberg was one of the very first chapters I started in Pennsylvania.
That's awesome.
So at that point, I know Lisa has a question, so I'll just say real quick. At that point, Pennsylvania was a new state office. We had 6 college chapters that had been managed out of our Eastern Regional Office in DC. And then we took over managing those 6 programs and expanding from there. So,
Liz, how long have you worked for Best Buddies?
Since September of 1994. So this September will be 27
many
years.
Of these people were born.
Before staff and students were born. Yes, 27 years. So I worked 7 years in Pennsylvania and then transitioned to some of our other programs. So, and now I'm part of the national program team.
Well, we're very lucky that you laid a solid foundation for us, Liz. Thank you for all your hard work all those years. Lisa Holes, you had a question.
Okay. I had an idea for the colleges people. Put best buddies stuff when they get accepted to the college, when they have open house. Maybe you can put in the package or on information about best buddies.
Get it while they're coming in, right? I love that idea. Yeah, like freshman orientation. Just say,
and then give them a sticker too.
Yeah, a sticker.
Or a bracelet.
This is our new director of marketing.
She would do it.
Thank you, Lisa. I love it. That's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, I think we all can think of a lot of ways that we have right in front of us that don't cost money, that don't really take too much effort to just spread the word, because I don't know about you guys, but this conversation just filled me up with so much positive, loving energy toward thinking about, I'm going to say how old I am. I'm 37 years old. And I just feel like your young, excited energy just injects us with so much momentum to keep this mission going forward. And we're going to accomplish so much more. There'll be so many more friendships in Pennsylvania because of the work you're doing, and so much more connection for people who really need it, myself included. So I just want to say a big thank you to our members of our Student Advisory Board for your time today, but also all the work you've done all year long. So thank you everybody so much. Thank you to Kelsey and Dom and Natalie and Alana, and who else am I missing? Who else was on there? There was
Thank you
somebody
to
else.
you and to Andrew and to Marissa and to Sam.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure working with all of you. Yeah, shout out to all the people that work together to make this happen, because teamwork is making this dream work. So on that note, thank you all for joining us. We will hopefully see you next time for our next Voices of Inclusion speaker series. Have a great weekend.
Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, everyone.